imagine this scenario. You have this renowned, very wealthy scholar. He's got his own students all around him.
Okay.
And then news arrives that a spiritual teacher has come to town.
Right.
What happens when his own colleagues, his peers, try to stop him from even going to see this teacher?
Interesting dynamic.
And then, what if the real debate isn't just about status or who should visit whom, but it gets into the very nature of truth itself?
That's exactly where we're headed in this deep dive. We're unpacking some ancient wisdom today from a really remarkable text called the Caṅkīsuttaṃ.
Yeah, it offers this surprisingly relevant, almost like a blueprint for how we assess information, how we arrive at, genuine understanding.
And that's really our mission here, isn't it? To explore this ancient conversation that I think powerfully challenges how we define truth, how we pursue it, especially now in our age of just information overload.
Absolutely. We're hoping to uncover some really surprising insights into critical thinking, the whole journey towards real knowledge.
And it all comes from this one source, the Caṅkīsuttaṃ, which tells the story of this pivotal encounter. You've got a prominent Brahmin, this wise teacher, and also a very, very keen young student.
So let's set the scene. The teacher, who's clearly highly revered, arrives in this place called Opāsāda.
Right, Opāsāda. It's described as a prosperous Brahmin village, actually a gift to the Brahmins from King Pasenadi of Kosala.
And the teacher's reputation.
Yeah.
It definitely precedes him.
Oh, absolutely. The text uses these incredibly laudatory titles, things like Arahant.
Meaning fully enlightened.
Exactly. And Sammasambuddha, which signifies perfectly self-awakened, plus many others, Sugata Lokavidu, they all point to someone with extraordinary wisdom and spiritual attainment.
So naturally, the local Brahmin householders are buzzing. They're all really eager to go visit him.
Which brings us to Koki. He's the prominent Brahmin in Opāsāda. He sees these crowds forming right from his big mansion.
And he thinks, okay, I should go too.
Right. He even sends his attendant ahead to tell the others, hey, wait up, Koki's coming.
But here's where it gets interesting. A group of other Brahmins, maybe 500 of them visiting from different places, they try to stop him.
Yeah, they basically say, hold on a minute. Their argument is purely about status.
They think he's too superior, that the teacher should come to him.
Precisely.
Yes.
It's a real clash of reputations.
And they have this whole list of reasons why Caṅkī is supposedly so eminent, right?
Oh, they lay it all out. They talk about his noble birth, pure lineage going back 7 generations on both sides.
Okay, pedigree. What else?
His wealth, of course. Rich, great possessions, lives in this royally gifted village.
Makes sense for status.
With his learning, master of the 3 Vedas, skilled in all the associated fields, lexicons, rituals, grammar, history, even an expert in reading the signs of a great man.
So he's got the scholarship covered.
And appearance and virtue. Handsome, pleasant, possesses this Brahma complexion, which is high praise, and he's known for excellent morality. Plus, he's eloquent, a respected teacher himself, teaching hundreds of young Brahmins, and he's highly esteemed by King Pasenadi and another important Brahmin, Pakarasati.
So in their eyes, he's the absolute pinnacle. Why should he go visit anyone?
Exactly. But Caṅkī, well, he just doesn't buy it. He completely refutes them.
Oh, how does he respond?
He insists very firmly he should be the one to visit the teacher. And he starts listing the teacher's qualities.
Ah, so he turns the argument around.
He does. And while some qualities mirror his own, like noble birth, he adds this layer of profound inner accomplishment that really shifts the whole conversation away from just external status.
This is where it gets good. What does he highlight about the teacher?
Okay, so he acknowledges the teacher is also well-born, but then immediately he points to the teacher's incredible renunciation.
Renunciation.
Yes, he gave up vast wealth, gold, silver, land, all of it, to become a homeless wanderer, even while his parents were weeping, apparently.
Wow. That's a powerful contrast to Caṅkī's own situation.
A stark contrast. Caṅkī also emphasizes that the teacher did this while young, in the prime of life. He gave up home life willingly.
So not just wealth, but youth too.
Right. And yes, the teacher is handsome, pleasant, has that Brahma complexion like Caṅkī is said to have, but Caṅkī adds that the teacher possesses holy and skillful morality, a different quality.
More depth there.
And eloquence. Yes, the teacher is an eloquent speaker, a teacher of many, just like Caṅkī, but his influence seems rooted in something deeper, his spiritual achievements.
What kind of achievements?
Things like being free from sensual craving, being unwavering, teaching about karma, cause and effect, and teaching about non-evil, about virtue.
Okay, so we're moving beyond just scholarship now.
Definitely. Kākī mentions the teacher comes from a high Kshatriya family, a warrior noble family, originally wealthy, but now people from all over, even far and wide, consult him. Even, it says, thousands of deities have taken refuge in him.
Deities, that's quite an endorsement.
It signals a truly vast spiritual influence. And Caṅkī mentions the 32 marks of a great man, a traditional sign of extraordinary destiny, either worldly or spiritual.
And what about worldly respect? Does the teacher have that too?
Yes, Caṅkī points out that powerful kings like King Bimbisara of Magadha and King Pasenadi himself, the same king who respects Caṅkī, have taken refuge in this teacher along with their families, and even the Brahmin Opāsāda.
The same figures who respect Caṅkī also respect the teacher. That neutralizes that part of their argument.
Exactly. And then Caṅkī makes a very simple, almost pragmatic point.
What's that?
He says, look, the teacher is currently a guest here in Opāsāda, and guests should be honored.
Hard to argue with basic hospitality.
Right. He concludes by saying the teacher's qualities are basically immeasurable, that even one of these qualities he listed would be enough reason for him to go and visit.
So how did the other Brahmins react to that?
Well, they listened, and they agreed. Caṅkī made his case effectively.
Good for them for being persuaded by the argument, not just sticking to status.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it? Moving from just reputation to looking at genuine qualities. So they all proceed together to visit the teacher.
Okay, so the initial hurdle is cleared. They all arrive. The teacher's there, talking with the elder Brahmins.
And this is when Kāpadika enters the picture.
The young student. Tell us about him.
He's described as being only 16 years old, but incredibly learned already, a master of the Vedas, skilled in debate, all the things the elders valued in Caṅkī, but in this very young package.
16. That's
Yeah.
impressive. And he just interrupts.
He does. He jumps into the conversation happening between the teacher and the elders.
Bold move.
The teacher, quite gently, tells him to wait his turn. It's sort of a customary way to handle interruptions, especially from someone younger.
But Caṅkī speaks up for him.
Instantly. Caṅkī defends Kāpadika, praises his noble birth, his intelligence, his learning, his debating skills. He basically vouches for him, saying, no, this young man is quite capable of discussing things with you.
That shows Caṅkī can recognize real substance, even if it's young and maybe a bit impetuous.
Absolutely. And the teacher, sensing Kāpadika's eagerness, perhaps his sharp mind, turns his attention to the young man.
And that acknowledgement is the opening Kāpadika needs.
It seems so. Feeling seen, he poses this incredibly profound question. It really shifts the focus of the whole encounter.
What does he ask?
He brings up the Brahmins' own ancient tradition, the one passed down orally through generations, their sacred lore, and he points out how they firmly conclude, this alone is true, anything else is false.
That absolute certainty based on tradition.
Exactly. And Kāpadika asks the teacher, point blank, what do you say about this?
Wow. That's cutting right to the heart of it, challenging the very foundation of their inherited knowledge. How does the teacher respond to that?
Well, he doesn't give a simple yes or no. Instead, he starts asking Kāpadika some really searching questions. It's a masterful way of guiding him to think more deeply.
Okay, what kind of questions?
He starts by asking, Kāpadika, among all the Brahmins living today, is there even one who can honestly say, I know this myself, I see this directly, this alone is true, anything else is false?
Based on direct personal knowledge? And Kāpadika's answer?
He has to admit, no, venerable sir.
Okay, so no living Brahmin claims direct perception of this absolute truth.
Then the teacher pushes it back further. Okay, what about any single teacher or teacher of teachers going back 7 generations? Could any of them say that?
Following the lineage back.
And again, Kāpadika has to say no.
So not even the recent ancestors claim direct sight of this truth.
And the teacher goes even further back to the very source. He asks about the ancient seers, the original composers of the mantras, the founders of their tradition. He names figures like Ahaka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, all these revered originators.
The ultimate authorities in their tradition.
Right. Did they ever say, we know this, we see this alone is true, anything else is false?
And the answer must be
no. Kāpadika confirms even they didn't make that claim of direct, absolute knowing.
So if nobody along the entire chain from the originators down to the present day actually saw or knew this truth directly,
then the teacher asks, what is this tradition like? He uses this brilliant analogy. He compares it to a blind chain.
that blind chain.
Yeah, like a line of blind men, each holding onto the one in front. The first one can't see, the middle one can't see, and the last one can't see.
I see. If the source isn't based on sight, then the transmission can't be either.
Precisely. So given this, the teacher asks Kāpadika, doesn't the Brahmin's assertion, this alone is true, anything else is false, turn out to be simply, well, groundless faith?
Faith without foundation in direct knowing.
And Kāpadika, to his credit, is honest. He admits, Venerable Sir, it seems our assertion is based on hearsay.
Hearsay, Opāsāda. Passed down, but not directly verified by anyone in the chain. That really dismantles the idea of absolute certainty based purely on tradition.
It does. It highlights the potential weakness of relying solely on inherited beliefs without critical examination or direct experience.
So, if blind faith and hearsay aren't reliable paths to certain truth, what can we rely on? Does the teacher offer an alternative?
He does. This is where he introduces a really insightful framework. He identifies 5 factors, 5 things that can influence our beliefs in this life. But here's the key point. These 5 can lead to truth, or they can lead to falsehood. They aren't guarantees.
Okay, 5 factors, but they're double-edged swords. What are they?
The first is faith, sada, believing something because you trust the source.
Makes sense. We rely on faith often.
Second is liking or preference, Rusi, believing something simply because you like the idea, it appeals to you.
Oh, confirmation bias territory there.
Exactly. Third is hearsay or tradition, Opāsāda, what they were just discussing, believing something because it's been passed down.
The blind chain?
Fourth is reasoning by analogy or reflection, Kāpadika, believing something because it seems logical, it fits a pattern you recognize or you've reasoned it out.
Okay, using logic, that seems more solid.
It can be, but logic can also be flawed or based on false premises. And the 5th factor is agreement with one's own view or acceptance, the Caṅkīsuttaṃ, basically, believing something because it fits with your existing worldview or you've pondered it and accepted it intellectually.
So even reasoning and personal reflection aren't foolproof guarantees of truth.
That's the crucial insight the teacher offers. Any of these 5, faith, liking, hearsay, reasoning, personal acceptance, even if you hold on to it very strongly, can turn out to be empty, void, and false.
Wow.
And conversely, something you don't have faith in initially or don't like or haven't heard before or doesn't seem logical at first or doesn't fit your view, that thing could actually be true.
That really demands humility in our beliefs, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So the takeaway for someone seeking wisdom, someone protecting the truth, is this. You should not jump to a definitive, absolute conclusion like, this alone is true, based only on these 5 factors.
You have to hold your conclusions more lightly.
Yeah.
Be aware of why you believe something.
Precisely. It's about intellectual honesty and recognizing the potential fallibility of these common grounds for belief.
Okay, so if we shouldn't jump to absolute conclusions based on these 5, what does it mean to protect the truth? Kāpadika asks about this next, right? The term is recounts.
Yes, he asks, to what extent, Venerable Sir, does one protect the truth? How do you do it properly?
And the teacher's answer?
It's quite elegant. He says you protect the truth when you acknowledge the basis of your belief. If you say, this is my faith, or this is my liking, or this is based on hearsay, or this reflects my reasoning, or this is a view I have accepted.
Ah, so you're being clear about the source or the nature of your conviction.
Exactly. You're stating honestly, this is where my belief comes from right now. You are protecting the truth by not misrepresenting your subjective conviction as objective, absolute fact.
So it's okay to have faith or a reasoned view, but you protect truth by labeling it as such.
Yes. You state your current position truthfully, but the teacher immediately adds, this is truth protection, this is not yet truth realization.
Okay, crucial distinction. Protecting truth by being honest about our beliefs is one thing. But how do we actually realize truth? What is truth realization, Buddha?
Kāpadika asks that too. To what extent does one realize the truth? And the teacher shifts gears here, describing a very active, practical, investigative process. It's not passive belief anymore.
How does it start?
It starts with examining the source of potential wisdom, typically, a teacher.
Yeah.
But you could apply this to any source, really. You examine them based on things rooted in greed, hatred, and delusion.
Why those 3?
Because these are seen as the root defilements that could corrupt someone's judgment, their actions, and their teachings. So you observe the teachers conduct their physical actions, their speech.
Looking for signs of integrity.
Yes. Are their actions and words free from greed, hatred, and delusion? If they are, their conduct will naturally reflect a certain purity. You watch them over time.
So first, assess the character and integrity of the source. Makes sense. What's next?
Then you assess the teachings themselves, the Dhamma. Is what they teach profound? Is it difficult to grasp? Is it peaceful, sublime? Is it something beyond just clever logic chopping, something subtle, something only the wise can really perceive?
Looking at the quality and depth of the message itself.
Right. And here's the connection. The teacher argues that such truly profound, subtle, liberating teachings cannot be effectively taught by someone whose mind is still clouded by significant greed, hatred, and delusion. The purity of the source enables the purity and depth of the teaching.
So the messenger's integrity is linked to the message's potential profundity.
That's the idea. Once the seeker observes and reflects and sees that the teacher is genuinely pure in conduct and that the teachings are profound, consistent with that purity, then faith arises. But this is a different kind of faith.
How so?
It's not blind faith based on hearsay or liking. It's sada confidence, trust born from careful observation and intelligent assessment. It's an earned confidence.
Okay, so this earned confidence is the starting point for realization. What follows?
It unfolds as a progressive journey, a chain of steps. Faith arises.
Based on observation.
Then, inspired by that faith, one approaches the teacher, seeks them out.
Takes initiative.
Then one associates closely with the teacher, pays respect, serves, spends time learning.
Builds a relationship.
Then one truly lends an ear, paying focused attention, being receptive.
Active listening.
Then one listens to the teachings, taking them in.
Hearing the content.
Then one remembers the teachings, retains the information.
Memory is key.
Then, crucially, one examines the meaning of those remembered teachings, ponders them, questions them, relates them to one's own experience.
Intellectual investigation.
Then the teachings need to endure one's reflection, Dhamma. They have to hold up under scrutiny, make sense, resonate as plausible or true after careful consideration.
They pass the test of reason and reflection.
When that happens, desire, Chanda, arises not craving, but a positive interest, an eagerness to understand more deeply, to realize it fully.
Motivation kicks in.
That desire fuels effort.
Opāsāda.
One becomes willing to exert energy.
Putting in the work.
Then one weighs and considers Tulana the teachings carefully, perhaps comparing different aspects.
Deep analysis.
And then one strives earnestly, Padhana. This implies sustained, dedicated application and practice.
Real commitment.
And finally, through that earnest striving, one realizes the ultimate truth, with the body meaning direct experiential understanding, and sees it thoroughly with wisdom, Panya.
So it culminates in direct personal insight seen with wisdom.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, that's truth realization.
That entire detailed step-by-step process, that's what the teacher calls truth realization, Sakanuboda. It's a path from reasoned faith to direct experience. But he adds one more thing.
There's another level.
Even that is not yet truth attainment.
Wow. Okay, my head is spinning slightly.
Yeah.
What on earth is truth attainment, Sakanupati, then, if realization is already that involved?
Kāpadika asks exactly that, and the teacher's definition is surprisingly simple, almost anticlimactic after the detailed path to realization.
What is it?
He defines truth attainment simply as the cultivation, development, and frequent practice of those very factors and qualities realized through the process.
Ah, so realization is the breakthrough, the direct seeing. Attainment is making it stick, living it, integrating it fully.
Exactly. It's about cultivating those states, developing them further, and practicing them consistently until they become second nature. It's the difference between seeing the path and actually walking it until you are the path, in a sense.
That makes sense. Realization is the insight. Attainment is the ongoing embodiment.
Precisely.
Now, Kāpadika also asked about what helps someone reach truth attainment, didn't he? There was another chain of factors.
Yes, and this is really useful. He asks about the things that are of great service for truth attainment. The teacher explains this by starting from the goal attainment and working backward, showing the necessary condition for each preceding step. It reveals the dependencies.
Okay, working backward, let's trace it. What's needed for truth attainment?
Truth attainment, he says, is greatly aided by striving, Palana. Without that persistent effort, you won't fully attain or embody the truth you've realized.
Makes sense. Attainment requires continuous effort. And what aids? Striving.
Striving is greatly aided by weighing consideration, Tulana. You need that careful, balanced assessment to direct your effort wisely and maintain motivation.
So thoughtful analysis fuels the effort. What aids weighing?
Weighing is greatly aided by exertion effort, Usaha, putting in the energy to think things through deeply. Maybe initial effort is a better word here than the final striving.
Okay, mental energy helps the analysis. What aids that exertion?
Exertion is greatly aided by desire, Chando, that wholesome desire, the aspiration to learn and understand and achieve the goal.
The motivation drives the energy. What aids desire?
Desire is greatly aided by the teachings' enduring reflection acceptance, Dhammanisana Kanti. When the teachings consistently hold up to your scrutiny and make sense, your desire to pursue them deepens.
So if it makes sense, you want it more. What helps the teachings endure reflection?
That is greatly aided by examination of meaning. Athupaparika. You have to actively investigate the meaning for them to truly resonate and stand up to scrutiny.
Active thinking makes them stick. What aids examination of meaning?
Examination of meaning is greatly aided by retention of teachings, Dhammataran. You can't examine the meaning if you haven't remembered what you learned.
Got to remember to analyze it. What aids retention?
Retention is greatly aided by listening to teachings, Dhammasavana. You have to hear them or read them first to remember them.
Obvious but crucial. What aids listening?
Listening is greatly aided by lending ear attention, Sodavadana. You have to pay attention, be receptive, to truly listen effectively.
Can't listen if you're distracted. What aids lending ear?
Lending ear is greatly aided by close association serving, Perupasana. Being near the source, engaging respectfully, creates the conditions for attentive listening.
Proximity and respect help attention. What aids close association?
Close association is greatly aided by approaching visiting, Upasakamana. You have to actually go to the source, make the effort to connect.
Have to show up. And finally, what aids approaching?
Approaching is greatly aided by faith, Sukha, that initial confidence or trust, perhaps born from observation or reputation, that motivates you to seek out the source in the first place.
Wow. It really brings it all back to that starting point of faith, but shows how faith needs to be the beginning of a very active, critical, and diligent process, not the end point.
Exactly. It's a complete path, laid out with incredible clarity, showing how each step enables the next, from initial trust all the way to full embodiment of truth.
So after hearing all of this incredibly detailed explanation of truth, belief, realization, attainment, how did young Kāpadika react? He asked the initial challenging question, after all.
He was profoundly affected. The text says he was delighted and rejoiced at the teacher's words. He was clearly deeply impressed and satisfied.
Did he say anything specific?
Oh, yes. He makes a remarkable admission. He openly confesses his previous prejudice. He says something like, Master Gautama, before this we used to think, who are these bald-headed recluses, these base-born dark folks? How could they possibly understand the Dhamma?
Wow. That's brutally honest. He admits his own prior bias and dismissal.
Completely. And then he says that the teacher's words have fundamentally changed him. He says the teacher has generated in him a genuine love for recluses, confidence in them, respect for them. It was a complete turnaround in attitude.
A true transformation based on the wisdom he heard.
And he concludes by formally taking refuge in the teacher, the Dhamma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the community, declaring himself a lay follower from that day forward for as long as life lasts.
So the encounter that started with a challenge about absolute truth ended with the challenger becoming a devoted follower, won over by the depth and clarity of the explanation.
It's a powerful testament to the effectiveness of the teacher's approach, not just asserting truth, but guiding the questioner through a process of inquiry.
And looking back at this whole sutta, this whole story and teaching, it feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, this ancient text gives us such a rigorous, practical framework for how we, as learners, can approach any new knowledge.
Whether it's, getting up to speed for a meeting at work, or trying to understand a complex scientific issue, or even making a big personal decision.
Exactly. It shows us a way to move beyond just accepting things based on hearsay, or because we like the idea, or because it seems logical on the surface.
Towards a much deeper, more verified kind of understanding. It's about assessing the source, engaging critically with the information, reflecting deeply, and then putting in the effort to truly internalize it.
It really is like a roadmap for discernment, especially valuable in our current world that's just flooded with information, so much of which is presented as absolute, unquestionable truth.
It encourages that crucial step back, that humility, that willingness to say, this is my current understanding based on X, rather than just, this is the truth.
Which then opens the door to actual realization and maybe even attainment.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, listening right now?
Maybe take a moment to consider this. In your own life, when you're pursuing knowledge or trying to understand something important, what's the main source of faith you tend to rely on most heavily? Is it authority, tradition, your own reasoning, just a gut feeling.
And then thinking about that detailed chain of understanding we explored, from carefully checking your sources, listening attentively, examining the meaning, letting it endure your reflection, all the way to striving for deeper insight.
What specific steps from that chain could you consciously implement, maybe starting today, to move beyond just truth protection, just holding a belief towards genuine truth realization in an area that truly matters to you?